Well, Christopher Pyne, Federal Parliament yesterday,
Yep.
he takes to the stand and he says a word that a lot of people heard as being the C word.
Yeah, and look, everyone's been debating this and discussing it. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. I think we are agreed that it's what we're calling an oral illusion, maybe combined with a whole lot of sounds behind the scene, because if it had been that word, there'd have been pandemonium in the Parliament. But it does raise some interesting questions about who uses this language and the way we deal with it. We're talking about the C word and the F word. Now, everyone knows exactly what words we're talking about, so should we just use those words? And are the words becoming less and less offensive? Remember that in the infamous brawl between two of our leading businessmen in this town, James Packer and David Gingell, they were using the word liberally. And James Packer, from what I can understand, uses both words in pretty well every sentence.
Well, I spent quite a few years working at PBL, and I've never worked in a place where you heard the C word being thrown around so often, usually in the company of men. Sometimes it was a term of affection. Other times it was a term of abuse, or a descriptive device to talk about how someone had acted in a meeting. But it was there all the time.
Yep.
I think the C word, there's a certain, you wouldn't call it a magic around the word, but it's still a taboo word. It's probably the last of the taboo words we have in our society. And I guess you have to leave that decision about whether or not it should be used and how it should be used with women, because they tend to have a much stronger view on it, I think, than men do. The F word has become so commonplace these days. You can hear it in primetime television right across every channel every night. But frankly, I still get offended when I hear school kids using it on a bus or a train.
Yeah.
Because if I'm sitting there, particularly when there are older people around, I feel sorry for them, because there's just a shower of these expletives being used all the time.
Yeah, and look, I mean, they're seeing it everywhere. You talk about the F word. I'm just wondering at what point we might start to look at our footballers, and we do ask them to show a lot of restraint. They are trained athletes, and they have to do certain things on a football field, and they're trained to the minute in terms of what they do physically. But whenever something goes wrong, be it a player or a coach, you can guarantee that you are going to see them go, and you know exactly what they meant. The
crow call.
The crow call. The Graham Kennedy crow call. So do you think in 50 years' time these words will be commonplace, that words will have a different meaning?
I mean, all languages change over the years, but the C word and the F word, they go back to the Middle Ages, back to the 15th and 14th century, and in one case, well beyond, back to Chaucer's days. So they've been with us here for a long, long time, almost 1,000 years. I think they'll still be there, and they'll still have their potency. I can't think of, unless you can come up with a new swear word that can be picked up by people around the world. I think they'll be there.
Well, look, if people like me that don't swear at all, and never have, of course, this is a real difficulty. But
I've run out of Mr. Sheen to shine his halo. Hang on, it's glowing.
No. I certainly use that word. And
have you used all swear words? You've used the F word.
Yep.
C word.
Yep.
You've used it.
Of course. Yes.
In what context, though? And do you feel guilty when you've used it?
Well, no. You use it almost as a joke between your mates. You say, "Oh, yeah, you almost seriously among some close friends. You almost use it." I know it sounds ridiculous, as almost like a term of endearment, which sounds ridiculous.
I remember being a fairly young boy, and a very
ago.
elderly relative who was very close to me had always sworn to me
Yeah.
that she'd never sworn in her life. And I followed her out the door one day, and as she stepped in something that the dog had left behind, I just heard that shh just start to come out. It's instinctive.
Outstanding.